Now, this is actually an interesting technique I got from a magazine. I was actually at the bookstore looking through the magazine, and one of the curious things is when you're looking for ideas in magazines like that, people tend to look at the overall ad. You know, if they see a graphic or an advertisement, they look at the whole thing. But what you can really do is break it down and look at various parts of it, and that's where this idea came from. And this was actually, it was a liquor ad for a brand of liquor, and it was very, very cool background element they did to it. I didn't care so much about the product or anything, any of the other text elements, but it was that background element I thought was very, very interesting and could be very easily recreated and used for virtually anything. So, to begin with, I'm going to start by giving this background a gray fill. We're actually going to add an effect to the background. So let's first give it a gray fill. So I'm going to press Shift-Delete and use 50% gray, and OK. And then we're going to go under Filter and go to Noise, Add Noise. And we're going to give it a fair amount of noise. Let's actually go up to about 100. And I'm going to leave it at Gaussian. Monochromatic is fine. We'll go ahead and click OK. And we're going to put a very slight blur on this. I'm going to go over to Filter and go to Blur, Motion Blur. And we'll just give this a very light blur. Let's do about, let's actually go about half now. Let's do about 50. So yeah, it looks like it's still got a little bit of rough to it, or roughness to it, but not quite completely blurred. So we'll go ahead and go with that and click OK. And I'm going to darken it up a little bit by running a quick levels adjustment on here. So let's open up levels and just push the darks in a little bit there. Make that background a little bit darker. That looks pretty good. All right. So now I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer. Actually, let's zoom back in. We're not ready to zoom out yet. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my gradient tool. And inside here, going to go into the gradient menu and choose this copper gradient right here. It's one of the presets, but I'm not getting it because of the color, but it's because it's a varying range of tones in there. And to get more of a range into that, let's actually put that back at 100. There we go. To get more of a range on that, I'm actually going to set the gradient type to reflective. So when I drag this across, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just drag across the image here. It's going to give me varying ranges of those light and dark areas. Now, like I said, I don't care about the color, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove the color altogether by going to Image Mode, or Image Adjustments, Desaturate. Now what I want to do is apply a filter to this. I'm going to go over into the Filter menu and go to Artistic and choose Plastic Wrap. And what I'm going to do here is, got the size set, I'm going to highlight strength to all the way to 20, smoothness all the way to 15, detail down to 1, and then click OK. And you can see it gives me a little bit of a lighting effect on there. It's very subtle, but looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is grab my pen tool. And this is where the technique comes into play, is that it's using pens and shapes in very interesting ways. So, going to start by drawing a standard path, just going, and this is why I wanted to zoom out my document here so I can see on the outside here. I'm going to start on the outside of the document right out here at the top. And then just click and drag to start a curved path, and then, again, go out to the outside. We'll go across here. Again, I'm staying on the outside area. And we'll add another curved path here, coming into the image and then coming back out. That's a little too far. So again, beauty of the pen tool is that it gives you that flexibility. And maybe come in and just have a little bit of a sweep there. So it's really just an abstract shape that I'm creating on this element. So now what I want to do is I'm going to select that shape. And again, we're on the layer containing that gradient element with the plastic wrap on it. Selected path, go into the layer menu, go to vector mask, and choose current path. And it's going to hide that element based on that vector mask. And you can see right away it's giving me kind of an interesting design element. Already, this is looking pretty interesting. And it's just masked with that vector shape. Well, now I'm going to add a little bit more interest to it by giving it a shadow. So let's go into that layer panel and just go in here into the layer style menu and choose drop shadow. And we can bring that shadow down a little bit, I think, and increase the size. Maybe even drop the opacity down a little bit so it's not quite as harsh. There we go. So there we are. So now what we can do is start introducing other elements and then changing the way those shapes interact with each other. Check this out. I'm going to select the path, or select the vector path, go into the toolbar, into the shape tools here, and choose the custom shape tool. And inside here, up at the options bar, you've got a menu for the custom shapes you can access. And if you click on it, you can open them up and see them all. If you don't see them all, if you only see like a small group of them, go into your flyout menu here and choose a category of shapes you might want to have a look at. Or you can choose all and view them all at once. So I'm going to do that now so we can open up all of them. And there's all the shapes available to me inside of Photoshop. So, just going to go and grab, let's actually grab, we'll grab this element here. Kind of a leafy element there. What I want to do here is draw this into my shape, and I'm going to go ahead and have it subtract from the existing shape on this layer mask. So if I go in here and just start to drag this out really big, it's going to subtract from that existing shape, ultimately giving me an interesting background element. And this is where the idea came from looking at that ad, is that they did this very same thing. They had a shape up front with a grunt with a texture behind it, and then they would block out or add various shapes as this to get an overall look on that. See, that's kind of cool. So you can experiment further and add other elements. Let's go in here and add, we'll just add, why don't we add a musical note? Here we go. Let's add this musical note right here. Now here's an interesting thing. I'm going to go over here and add the intersect on this, because these last two items you have over here are the exclusion and the intersect. So if you draw this out, you can see what's happening is that areas it overlaps, it knocks out, and then areas where it's by itself, it's filling in the shape. So you can get really interesting interaction with all these various elements by drawing the shapes in and then changing the way they blend. If I turn this off, you can see that will only show where the shapes overlap, so that doesn't do any good. So that's kind of an interesting element. So let's go and grab another one. So you can just add all these different kinds of cool elements and shapes. You can even bring shapes in from Illustrator and use them in this very effect as well. So let's grab another. Well, let's grab another abstract element here. Let's do this one right here. Once again, I'll set that to. Let's actually set it to add, and we're going to add some area up here towards the top, just like that. Just giving it an abstract element there. We can add another element. Let's do something. This one right here again. Actually, no, we've already used that one. Let's do this one. And don't make them just small. Make them huge. Let's actually make that knock out that area. There we go. So when you don't want to see the paths, just click on the empty area of the paths or the layers panel to get, or to make them disappear so you can see better. So you can see how just adding these elements and seeing how they interact can give you a very interesting result. Maybe we can add this. Oh, nope. Let's actually add this element here. Right down here. And even after you've always added a path, you can always change its type. You can have it subtracting, adding, doing whatever to these various shapes. Let's actually re-add that one again. There we go. So there it is. Where it's selected on the path. Do make sure you're selected on the right path when you do that. But you can see how all these elements can really combine to create a very interesting effect. And again, you can move all these around. They're all still separate elements, but the way they're interacting and blending with these layer masks or the vector masks gives you very interesting background elements. All kinds of different cool ways to play with these background elements. And just to finally finish this off, since it was a liquor head that I saw it based on, let's actually select this one and drag it over. We'll just position that right in the middle. Interesting. That little part right there. Again, this is why the vectors are so cool, is I can just manipulate this curve a little bit and reveal more of that area. And I can add another shape in there I want. I can get a different kind of bend altogether here. There we go. Just all different types of possibilities, all because these are vector paths, and they're resolution independent, meaning that they'll will not lose quality even after you've made any kind of changes to them. So let's add maybe a base down here. Might as well finish this off since we've already gotten this far. Like we did earlier with the watch, let's go ahead and create a reflection for this element here. There it is. Drop that opacity down. So the point is really the background elements here. How you can create a shape and mask and move around these various elements. And we can just have our little caption here, because you can see my bottle of liquor has no name. You know why? Because it doesn't need a name. It is what it is. Little funny element there. But hope you can see how the power of shapes can take you to a whole new area of really cool creative possibilities just by going in here and moving these around. And it's very non-specific. You notice the bigger we make it, the more non-specific it is, and more abstract the background becomes, and just gives you varying types of possibilities. So again, I could play with this. I could sit here and experiment with this all day, and I hope you get an idea. But by all means, load up a document, create some shapes, and just have fun with creating these various cool backgrounds using vector masks.